Hi, I'm Kim Jamieson-Hirst of Chatterbox Quilts. I'm going to show you how to make a really easy placemat. These are so simple to do. They're great for gifts for people. You may even want to make up a set for yourself so you can enjoy them. So let's take a look at these, because what I really like about them is the fact that there's no binding on them, because I hate doing binding, and they're self-mitered. So look at the nice miters in the corners, and these are so simple to create. Now, these are a great way to practice some quilting, because there's just a little bit of quilting needed in the middle of them. So whether you want to try some free motion or maybe use your walking foot, either will work. Nice, small, simple project to do that on. And as you can see, no binding, no binding. So to make these, you only need a few things. You're going to need batting like you always do. You're going to need some fabric for the top and fabric for the backing. And you can create these from a fat quarter. You can use a fat quarter for the top and a fat quarter for the backing. So I'm just going to go get my things and I'll show you what you need to create these simple placemats. Okay, so remember I said you need 2 fat quarters, and that's for each placemat. And then you're going to take those fat quarters, you're going to trim them down. So let's talk about what you need to figure out, or how you're going to figure out what size you're going to cut them. So your top part and the batting are going to be cut the same size. So what this is actually going to be is the finished size of your placemat. So in this case, I chose 12 inches by 14 inches. So it's 12 inches this way, 14 inches that way. Then you have to figure out how big to cut the backing. Now it's not hard, but there's a little bit of math involved. So let's work on this. As you've noticed in my finished sample, I've got these wide borders, or if you want to call it wide binding, on all sides. And what you need to figure out is how wide a border do you want to see. In this particular case, it's 1.5 inches. So figure out what size you want your borders to be, the width of them that is, and take that number, in my case 1.5 inches, and multiply it by 2. So that gives me 3 inches. I need 3 inches extra on both sides, so that's 6 inches total, right? I need to add that to what the size is that I cut my top fabric. So remember, I cut it 14 inches wide. If I add 6 to that, it gives me 20. I should say long, probably. Depends on which way you want to put it, I guess. I had it 12 inches the other way, so if I add 6 to that, it's 18. So my backing, I cut 18 inches by 20. So you can do the math yourself and figure out what size you want to actually cut your pieces at. Keeping in mind that if you go bigger than the size of a fat quarter, you're going to get into some yardage required. Okay, so once you've got that done, you've got your pieces cut and ready to go. Let me just show you a few other things you're going to need. You're going to need an iron and a pressing surface, of course. You're going to need a ruler. Now, it depends. I have 2 sizes of rulers. I've got my bigger ruler here, my 24-inch one, and I also have my 12-inch one. So both may come in handy. It depends on how easy it is for you to cut things, and I'll show you that when we get to that point. I also have some little embroidery scissors too. These are going to come in handy. If you've got bigger scissors, that's fine as well. I've got my rotary cutter too. I'm going to need that. And then I need something to push out corners. So I'm using that purple Thang, and I'll put a link to that in the description below so you can see what I'm talking about. This is really great for pushing out corners, so that's what I'm going to use. That's pretty much all you need right now. You do need your sewing machine too, and we're going to go there next, and I'm going to show you what the next step is in this project. Before I go to the sewing machine, maybe I should tell you what I'm going to do there, because it's a little different than what you might think. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the top piece and the batting, and I'm going to quilt it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my walking foot to do some wavy line quilting on this. So after I finish doing that, then I'm going to come back here and show you how you're next going to attach this quilted piece to your backing, because there's a little bit of consideration needs to go into doing that. It's not just drop it down and continue on. So I'm going to go and do some quilting first, then I'm going to meet you back here and show you what the next step entails. Okay, so what I did is I just free motion quilted the top and the batting, not the backing. So the backing's still all by itself. And I'm just going to show you, it's hard to see from the top, but if I flip it over, you can get a little bit of a better view of what I did. I used my walking foot, I just did a wavy line on it. And what I did is I did it all across this way first, and then when I did the lines that go horizontally, I actually made them further apart and didn't put as many of them in. But it gives just a nice texture to the front of it without taking very long at all. So that's a fun one to try. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to take my backing. It's hard to tell with this fabric, but you should make sure that the wrong side is up. And you want to center your quilted top on the backing. So remember when I was talking about how big my backing is in relationship to my front, I said I had an extra 3 inches on either side. So what I want to do is make sure that I've still got the 3 inches evenly on both sides. So I'm going to line my ruler up along the edge of my backing, and I should have my top at about the 3-inch mark. So I'm pretty close on the top of it. I just need to move the bottom, I should say, over just a little bit, and we can check again. So you can fuss with this as much as you want. You don't have to be exactly right on. No one's going to notice. I'd say if you're within a 1/4 inch, you're probably pretty good. Now let's look at the top and bottom. Now you can see I'm out quite a bit on the top there, so I'm going to have to move that up a little bit. It's kind of hard to do that because the batting wants to stick to the backing already. Okay, now I've moved it up a little bit too far. So like I said, you can fuss with this a little bit. You can fuss with this a lot. The choice is up to you. But you do want to get it as good as you can. You always want to do your best. Okay, that looks pretty close. I would say we're out just a little bit here than this way. Okay, so that looks pretty good to me. The next thing I want to do is to pin it down. Okay, I didn't tell you you need pins. You might need some pins. So I'm just going to pin this in a few places here, because the next step is to actually stitch the top to the backing. Okay, so I've got it all pinned down here. And so what I want to do is I want to go and I want to stitch it with a 1/4 inch seam all the way around the top to the backing. So I'm going to go to the machine and do that, and then I'm going to meet you back here and show you what the next steps are. I'm using my Janome Horizon Memory Craft 9400 QCP to do this project, and I've got the walking foot on. So what I want to do is run a 1/4 inch seam around the outside, and the walking foot will just make sure that both layers move along together really well. So let's get started. So I've stitched my top and batting down to the backing with my 1/4 inch seam, you can see there, and now I need to trim off these corners. So you want to have a 45-degree angle here, and you want to make sure you're 1/4 inch out from the edge of your fabric. So I'm going to take my ruler, I'm going to take my 45-degree line that's on the ruler and line it up against the side here. And I'm also looking at that little 1/4 inch right there. I want that to be right on the corner, so I'm cutting a 1/4 inch away from that. So let me just get myself lined up properly here, best as I can. All right, that looks pretty good. And I'm just going to cut across and cut that corner off. And I'm going to do that on all 4 sides. Okay, so there we go, and that's what it should look like. Now what do we do, you say? Well, now it gets even more fun, but I need to get my pressing surface and my iron, so just give me a second to get that and get set up. Okay, now I've got my pressing surface all set up and I've got my iron on and everything, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to take each of these sides and we're going to fold them in to meet the quilted center, and then we're going to press them. So you want to make sure they stay there. Okay, so you're going to do that for all 4 sides. All right, there we go. That's looking a little bit more like a placemat. The next step is that you're going to fold them in. And that's how they're going to look, but that's not really what you're going to do. You're going to do the opposite, actually. So let me get my iron out of the way here. And you're going to need some pins for this step. So what you want to do is you want to flip it over, and what you're going to do is match the different sides. So you're going to take one of your sides and you're matching up the edges, and you're matching up along the side too. You want to get them as straight as you can, and then you might want to put a pin or 2 in to hold it, and you're going to do this for all 4 sides too. Okay, so there's one done, and we'll move to the next side and we're going to do the same thing. So you have to wrangle your fabric a little bit here to get it to line up, but that's okay. It's just fabric, it'll move for you. Okay, that doesn't look right. That looks like a dinner roll. Okay, I have to move around the sides the same direction or I'm going to have that kind of an issue. Okay, so let's go back and let's just move along in one direction. Okay, so it doesn't matter if you go to the right or go to the left, but you should have corners coming together. It's going to look like a little tray when it's done, actually. Okay, so see, it looks like a little tray, right? That's what it should look like. And you're just going to see the top basically when you flip it over on the other side. So the next thing you need to do is to go to the sewing machine, and I'm going to do that now, and I'm going to take all of these little corners that I've got pinned together, and I'm just going to stitch a 1/4 inch seam allowance from the top to the bottom along the straight edge there. So you just want to be sure that you lock off your stitches on either side when you do that, because you don't want them coming apart. So I'm going to go to the machine and do that, and then we're going to come back here and continue on again. So I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch seam just along the straight edge here, and I want to lock my stitches at the beginning and the end. I'm going to start in the middle here, go, well, not in the middle, but in a little bit further, and go backwards and then come forwards again so that I don't get myself caught on that edge when I start off. So I'm using my walking foot. That gives me some good stability here. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to do that for all the other corners as well, and then I will show you what the next step is. So this is what I have now, a really cute little tray, but that's not what we want, is it? We want a placemat. So what do we do next? Well, almost done, just a little bit more to do. First off, I want to trim off some of these edges. So I want to trim off these little corners here. So you're just going to cut across them, take out some of that bulk. Make sure you don't cut through the stitching, of course. And this one you can just cut that on a bit of an angle. And I'm going to do that for all 4 corners or stitched areas. Okay, now, these little bits all over the place. I'll get rid of those later on. Let's take my scissors out of the way because I don't need those anymore. Now comes the big moment of truth. You're going to flip things right side out again. And you're coming back to the top because this is where the magic happens. Okay, and this is where that purple thing comes in, because you want to push out your corners, because you want to get those nice mitered, sharp as you can corners. So push them all out. And while I'm doing this, I should explain why I've got the border fabric doubled over like this, because some methods don't do that. The reason I did that is because in this particular case, and perhaps in other cases, you will have a center that may be darker than your border fabric or your backing fabric. And you don't want this fabric to show through here. So by doubling the fabric over, you can hopefully totally, if not mostly, avoid having that. So here we go. We are all good here. Some extra thread there, we don't need that. Okay, so I want to make sure that everything's pushed out as much as I can get it. So it's nice and as sharp as I can get it. This guy could use a little bit extra help, I think. Let's see, I'm trying not to actually push a hole in my fabric. You know, there's kind of that happy medium somewhere. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I want to take it back to the sewing machine and I want to top stitch along here. Okay, I'm just going to do that with a straight stitch for this one, but you could use a decorative stitch if you wanted. But before I do that, I'm just going to give it a nice press. So this is all, I should just tell you, this is all coming in right against that quilted top, all right? So let's just give it a press. So this may change the pressing seam, or the pressing mark I should say, that you already had on there, that's okay. You just want to get it nice and flat at this point in time. You can press it later on if you want to, and I might put some starch on that as well, but I just want to get it in there. So you can see here's a bit of a difference here. Okay, that looks pretty good. So the next step, and the final step, is to go to your sewing machine and to stitch along here so you can fix the backing to the front. So you're going to do a top stitch, and if you want you can just do a straight stitch, or you could do some decorative stitching on it. So when you're finished, it's going to look like this. Okay, so you can do as much stitching as you want in that border area, or you can just leave it simple like this. But that is how you make a really easy, no binding, self-mitered placemat.